Sure if the rest of the world is aware yet, we have a quarterback in Chicago. Oh, my God, I fell in love over the weekend. Your takeaways from Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he looks like he belongs for sure. I think the big thing is kind of, like seeing how much of it translates and seeing what he looks like out there in his uniform. And, I know that sounds like a simple thing, but obviously it's a different context in the NFL. So, I think all of that is exactly where you'd want it to be. And, I think all the work that they did and how creative they were and making sure he was ramped up and ready to go, all that paid off. Obviously there's the one throw that he made that got my attention at least, which was, I think you guys know which one I'm referencing, the one where he rolled to his right and on the run was able to get enough power on the ball to get it, 20, 25 yards downfield, where it didn't even look like he had his feet underneath him, so you see the poise, you see the ability to run the offense. And I think maybe the most encouraging thing is, and I think this is going to be a big question for him in year one, is how quickly can they get him to play on time, right? And a lot of the stuff that happened over his last year at USC was related to what was around him and how the roster wasn't where it needed to be, wasn't where it had been the year before. And so, there were some spots where he had a tendency to hold on to the ball. So I think one thing that you'd be looking for is, okay, how quick is he playing? How much is he holding on to the ball? Is he trusting what he sees? And I think you saw all of that too.
Albert, is it commonplace, especially with the Bears playing 4 preseason games and everyone else is not? How do you recalibrate that if you're Matt Eberflus? What's the commonplace for that? Because he's going to play against Cincinnati on Saturday, but does he play in the first team play against Kansas City for the last game?
I think a lot of that depends and has depended in these sorts of situations on where the kid is. And a lot of times coaches internally will keep markers on where they want guys to get. And so that's one piece of it for sure is has he checked every box you wanted him to check before the season starts? And I think, as far as game action goes, last week was obviously a really good start. The other part is who else is playing. And I don't think that part can be undersold. You're not going to put him out there with a backup offensive line. It's just the reality of it. So while everyone would love to see him a couple more times before the season starts, he could benefit from it. There isn't a ton of sense in putting him out there behind a second-team offensive line when the guys on the other side might not be worried about getting to the season. They might just be worried about making the team, So that part of it, I think, is really a big piece of it. So how is Matt Eberflus and his staff handling the rest of the roster? Whatever the answer to that is, I think goes a long way to determining whether or not Caleb plays in the last game.
In terms of Hassan Reddick, he says, I'm not coming in. He's already fined $1.2 million. Are those, I don't call them fake fines because they're legit, but if he was willing to settle at $27 million, now he says, I need to get 28, so he gets the fines covered. Do you do you think they're going to trade him?
I don't right now think they're going to trade him. I think a lot of times these things can drive a conclusion. When you do have things come to a head this way, or that happened in this case, it's really hard to say. But obviously this hasn't gone the way the Jets expected. Reddick hasn't gotten the contract he wanted. I think Reddick, and if you really look at it, is sort of in that spot where he never got the mega deal. You know what I mean? For as good a player as he's been, he never got the just blockbuster. And I'm not going to say he's not set for life because he probably is, but the mega deal that the great pass rushers got, he never got it. And now he's in his 30s. And so you're talking about a guy who is probably looking to make up for what he might have missed on the front end of his career. And so, I think that makes this unpredictable, and how far he's willing to go, I think dictates where this goes. My guess would be they find some sort of middle ground, not by giving him a hard raise, but by giving him some incentives and trying to build some stuff into his deal that'll make him whole, and create a win-win situation where, if you hit a certain amount of sacks, you produce for us in a certain way, the team has a certain amount of success, then you'll get the money that you want.
We should probably break down our sides on this, Cap, like Reddick's side and the Jets side, because we were talking about this earlier, Albert, and we just said like it's on both sides, but I just think that the player is deciding not to play. The Jets say we're going to keep fighting you. I just think that there's going to be some kind of common ground at some point. Just because he's not playing that doesn't mean he's going to be out in October.
Right. And I mean, like, he is a veteran. So the Jets system is relatively user-friendly. He's a pass rusher. So, like, you're going to be able to use him so long as he's in shape. And I trust he's stayed in shape. So there are a lot of elements to this where I think you can look at it and say, there's a good chance this could wind up being okay in the long run. One thing that definitely complicates it is how funky the pass rusher market is, and how certain things are a little out of whack, so you have your guys who are making $13, $14, $15 million a year, and maybe have been on their contracts for a while. Reddick's in that category. We've talked about Matthew Judon being in that category. And then you got, Nick Bosa at $34 million. And you got, more recently, Danielle Hunter on a third contract making $29 million per, so that's a big gap. And it sort of colors why these guys are willing to go to the wall to get more money, because they know that money's out there. And, for a couple of these guys, Judon and Reddick, certainly part of it. Like, those guys are closer to the end than they are to the beginning. So, if they're going to want a big payday like that, there's probably some sense of urgency. They got to get it done now because, whatever happens tomorrow isn't promised to them.
In terms of Matthew Judon, because Reddick has never played with his hand in the dirt. That's a bigger adjustment than saying Judon, who plays on the same side as Sweat, has to flip sides, or one of them does. Is Judon going to get moved? Because there is some report that the Bears have at least inquired. Yeah,
so, I mean, there have been a few teams that have inquired. Denver, Atlanta, Arizona, like, they've gotten inquiries on Matthew Judon. And, I think it's for the Patriots right now, like, they're not in some, like, desperate win now situation, obviously, because of where their roster is. So, like, they can kind of hold their ground here a little bit. And say, well, a fifth-round pick isn't going to do it for us because we think we can get a fifth-round comp pick if we just let them leave in free agency after the year. I think the Patriots have held their ground on this. They've rewarded a lot of guys this offseason too, which I think colors this as well, where it's like if you're going to reward a lot of guys and then buckle when somebody else comes to the table, that can be, that can create some dangerous precedents for you. So, they sort of dug this hole for themselves by, when they paid Christian Barmore, it did get under the skin of Devon Godchow and Judon. Now Godchow's been paid. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens on Judon, but they are listening. And it wouldn't shock me if, again, like an Atlanta, a Chicago, a Dallas, an Arizona team that like needs pass rush help, Denver, winds up getting him. It's just going to be a matter of what the price is because he's only under contract for another year.
Albert, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
It's Albert Breer from SI.com and Monday Morning Quarterback.